Right now, I'm going to go to my brass-coated party panel. From the Fox News specialist, she's a co-host and also a correspondent on the Greg Gutfeld Show. It's Kat Timpf. And joining her tonight, Freethink media partner and host of the phenomenal Fifth Column podcast, Kmele Foster, and Republican strategist and author of GOP GPS, Evan Siegfried. Evan, you are outnumbered. No, just kidding. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Jeff Sessions' performance today. I was watching Ken Starr, former independent prosecutor, say that he thought that Sessions did an amazing job. He's such a sterling human being that his beautiful heart light shone throughout the entire testimony. What did you make of it?
I thought it was one of those Rorschach tests where both sides saw what they wanted to on Sessions' testimony. I think Republicans...
Isn't that the case with everything nowadays, though? It's so politicized, you really see what you want to see.
Yeah, it's alternative facts for everybody.
As a Republican, what did you think?
I thought that Jeff Sessions did a fantastic job in protecting the president and not giving up anything legally that could be used against him. I don't know. I know it seems like he's sort of lost in the woods, but that's a very smart strategy in that he can't get pinned down for if something's discovered in the future.
Yeah.
And at the same time, he made no drama that the president can go to. And when we're talking about him technically not invoking executive privilege, but saying he reserves the right to not talk about it
on behalf of the president,
because the president could,
deferential.
after the fact, say that, and it's appropriate, but there was no law allowing that.
And
that's smart in that Democrats can't hold him in contempt for not doing that. They'd require people to, or they'd require the Senate to vote on every single question he avoided.
Yeah, but this way, and Chairman Burr even said, you know, hopefully you can take some of these questions to the president, get approval, and get back to us. What I was curious about, I felt like Sessions was all over the map on Russia, because to Kamala Harris, he said, we have to have a harmonious relationship with Russia. With McCain, in regards to cyber warfare, he said, we need to do more. And, you know, he also said he believed that Russia was meddling in our election. So what is it?
Yeah, I think there's actually probably a little more uniformity there than that. I mean, with Kamala Harris, what I thought I heard him saying was that we ought to be trying to have a harmonious relationship with Russia. Yeah. It's unfortunate that we don't have a harmonious relationship. I agree. I want us to have harmonious relationships with as many people as possible. Clearly, there are things, however, with the Russian-U.S. relationship that are troubling and that are irksome, which these hearings are ostensibly supposed to be about, like, say, election meddling. Unfortunately, this particular three-ring circus is merely about one thing, and it is grandstanding, primarily on the part of conservatives. I don't like Mr. Sessions. I don't think Mr. Sessions may be a remarkable human being. I don't know him personally, but as Attorney General and as a senator, there are plenty of things about him that are deplorable and that are worth criticizing. Him being a secret spy for the Russians, I have seen little tangible evidence of that. I'm not certain if Democrats actually believe this or if they want to use this as a cudgel to bludgeon
or
the Trump
if it's just a huge tool of distraction. But speaking of distraction, Eric Holder has done the same thing in the past. Shouldn't we have just a uniform idea that if you're going to testify before Congress, say something?
Well, first of all, I'm not an attorney, but if I were, I'd advise all my clients to speak in a Southern accent.
It really is welcoming.
Seriously, listening to him talking like this, dude didn't do anything. I almost forgot for a second that he doesn't care all about my civil liberties. For like 2 seconds, I was like, oh, he seems kind of nice. No, he's not nice. But the executive privilege, so you could predict that. The people asking the questions could predict that. They didn't think that he was actually going to answer some of these questions. You could tell that they had practiced obstruction and stonewalling and saying those words forcefully in the mirror all morning, and no one was happier that he didn't answer than they were.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And speaking of Democrats, they were quick to react to today's testimony. Among them, Illinois Senator Dick Durbin, who said in a statement, quote, in his first few weeks as the nation's highest-ranking legal authority, Attorney General Sessions has recused himself from the investigation of Russian interference in our election, recommended the dismissal of the director of the FBI, reportedly offered his resignation to the president, and refused to answer questions from the Senate Intelligence Committee. It is hard to see how he can continue to serve. Well, did today's hearing give the left any more ammo? Speaking of the report about resignation, and reportedly the Attorney General offered his resignation before the president went on his first foreign trip. Why didn't we hear about that today? That seems like a pretty important point. Someone could have asked him, are you ready to resign? Did you offer to resign?
What Republican would bring that up? Because it would just make the Sessions look bad. And Democrats don't want to bring up the resignation. They were looking at, from the tone of their questioning, putting him in an orange jumpsuit for his spy activities with Ambassador Kislyak. So it was politically smart for both of them not to say that.
But would Democrats acknowledge if they thought he did well?
No, they certainly wouldn't. But there is no doing well with a particular circus like this. They're asking the same questions over and over again, knowing that their colleague next to them did not actually get answers to those questions, so that there can be video of them badgering this particular guy. I don't know if it's laziness. It's politics. This is the way it's played. And I should be clear. I don't think that the hearings themselves are injuring the country. It's keeping all of them busy, which means they're not passing laws that are harming the rest of us.
That is maybe the only good thing about this. And I think that's why Republicans like it, because they don't have to work. They can stay busy and distracted with the idea, oh, this Russia cloud is over us. Oh, well, can't tackle health care. So ultimately, what does this get us? Are we addicted to the drama of these Senate hearings? You know, having seen Comey and Sessions just a few days apart.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that people are really disappointed because this one wasn't as interesting as the Comey one, because obviously Sessions still works for the guy. You're not going to be saying he has a reason to still care about what he says if he doesn't want to upset President Trump still. But eventually you'd think people will get bored. One of my favorite things now is, you know, regular civilians who don't work in media, work in politics, they now realize that congressional hearings are actually quite boring.
Yes, they are. It's all boring. They should go home. Well, the party panel returns a little bit later in the show. First up, does anyone in the administration need to worry about legal trouble after Jeff Sessions' testimony today? Greg Jarrett joins me to weigh in. And a little later, Defense Secretary James Mattis says the United States military lacks readiness, and it's all Congress's fault. Everything is Congress's fault. But how much more money does the Pentagon need? Would $1 trillion keep us safe? We will discuss. Please stay right here. The military once again looking to fatten up its wallet. Defense Secretary James Mattis has asked Congress for an additional $33 billion for what he claims are unfunded military needs. That's on top of the $603 billion that the president has already proposed for 2018. Secretary Mattis also claims the United States is, quote, not winning in Afghanistan right now. And cited that as a need for the increased funding. Today, however, the Government Accountability Office hit back and said the Department of Defense needs to better manage its finances. So does the Pentagon need a raise or a financial planner? The party panel is back, thank goodness. It's Kat Timpf, Kmele Foster, and Evan Siegfried. Evan, I will start with you. So let's say, hypothetically, we gave the Defense Department $1 trillion. We already give them $600 billion. If we gave them $1 trillion, would we be safer?
I don't think the money would be well spent. I think they do need a financial planner, because what they're doing right now is throwing good money after bad. The GAO report did highlight some instances of fiscal incompetence on their part. But the thing that really stood out about the GAO report to me was the GAO actually started telling the military how they should be engaging in military matters. In hotspots, they said, instead of sending special forces to deal with it, you should just send a whole bunch of ground troops and leave them there. That's a lot more American lives at risk, and that's not as effective as having a highly elite special forces team going in to take a surgical strike.
Now, the Government Accountability Office showing the inefficiency of government. All right, so Kmele, here we are still in Afghanistan.
15 years?
America's longest war. You know, this is a bloody and brutal conflict. Do we need more money in the Defense Department to win in Afghanistan? And what does winning in Afghanistan even mean at this point?
This was my next question. Please define win. I am not certain who it is we are chasing at this point. I don't know what a good outcome looks like. Normal in Afghanistan is certainly not any standard that is good for Americans. Before we pour in additional money, that is the conversation that needs to happen. And quite frankly, we have any number of conflicting foreign policy objectives, and more money is not going to help clarify those things.
And what about accountability for the Department of Defense? Is it possible to have civilians oversee and apply any accountability, or is that offensive?
Well, to many, it's very offensive. As soon as you start suggesting, hey, maybe you can spend your money better. Well, you don't care about, you love ISIS? Don't you? The threat of terror is real. Do you not know that it's real? They hate us. They hate us. And then everyone goes, I'm sorry. And then they're able to just spend as much money as they want, or else they go into the ISIS. And you know, of course it's real, but of course, you know what else is real is money, and you need to kind of treat it like that, because because it's able to be stroked with emotions,
Yeah.
fear, they can get as much money as they want.
Also jobs, because every weapon system, congressmen make sure that all these different components are built in all these different congressional districts, so it permanently
They keep
makes
making
it
tanks.
so they can't.
They keep making tanks,
defund
and
these
the military's
programs.
like, we don't need tanks. Stop. But Congress is like, oh, no.
If I even suggest cutting the military budget, I hear people say, well, if you don't like it here, you can just leave. It's like, okay.
Yeah, but how much is enough? I mean, that's
Exactly.
like $1 trillion is an insane amount
Yes.
of money. Is that what people want? Do they want? What does it mean to rebuild the military?
Right.
What does it mean to play us out?
Especially when you see that they're not spending their money well.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the questions here is what sort of bureaucracy do we actually see at the Pentagon?
Yeah.
And the fact is that it is a sizable one. A significant proportion of the Pentagon budget goes to
And
an
there
army
are
of paper pushers.
patriotic, long-serving members of the military who love this country and they love their jobs, and they are the first to say that it is incredibly inefficient, and maybe we need to think some of the structures
Sure.
and not necessarily arming the warriors. You are so good to be here. And coming up as Obamacare, and I want to thank the panel. Woo! Evan, Kmele, and Kat. Look how luscious. There we go. As Obamacare continues to come apart at the seams, the president is pushing Republican senators to come up with a replacement. And wait till you hear how many counties could soon have one or no insurance options. Peter Suderman joins me to crunch the numbers. He's getting crunchy. Grab a spoon. He's next.